the anchor for this event. Somaiya public lecture series are held once a month and provide a platform to motivate young minds, academics, and scholars from our institutions. They are presented with an opportunity to listen to world-renowned scientists, educationists, researchers, and thought leaders. Before we commence this lecture, I request everyone to mute their mobile phones. It is my privilege to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished dignitary, Dr. Darlie Koshy, ex-director, National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad, ex-director general and CEO of Apparel Training and Design Center, Delhi, founding chairperson, Fashion Management, NIFT, and chairman of National Design Business Incubator. We are honored to have you here, sir. I warmly welcome the president of this lecture session, Professor Harshit Desai, Director, MIT ID Innovation. I extend a warm welcome to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Rajshekharan Pillai, sir. I'm pleased to welcome Lieutenant General Jagbir Singh, sir, Secretary, Somaiya Vidya Vihar. A very warm welcome to all HOIs, deans, and principals, faculty, students, and guests. May I request our dignitary, Dr. Darlie Koshy, sir, and President of this series, Professor Harshit Desai, sir, to please grace the dais. Let's commence on an auspicious note with our campus prayer. May I request everyone to please rise for the prayer. invite our Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, to felicitate Dr. Darlie Koshy, sir. May I now call upon Lieutenant General Jagbir Singh, sir, to felicitate Professor Harshit Desai.
Tanmay Bhatt, who's one of India's biggest content creators, and then he WhatsApp me saying, "Hey, tere pa-"
I now invite our Vice Chancellor, sir, for the welcome address.
Good morning and welcome to the public lecture function after the 2 years of corona pandemic. Of course, we have been meeting virtually. Some of these public lectures are also happening virtually. And I'm extremely glad that we are all here, surviving all the pandemic in a very healthy way, and our campus is in full action. Now, today's function, as you know, this is the one of the public lectures under the Somaiya public lecture series. We have been reaching prominent educational and educational innovators, educationists, scientists, thought leaders, all these people during the last 4 years for our public lecture series. Today, we have a very eminent educationist, Professor Dr. Darlie Koshy, who is an educationist par excellence. He has been heading as the Director General and CEO of Apparel Training and Design Center and Institute of Apparel Management under the aegis of the Apparel Export Promotion Council. He has been the Director of NID for almost 10 years. He has contributed significantly to the skill development in the country and all over the world. He has been shaping the skill pyramid, incorporating skills at all levels at the Institute of Apparel Management. He has played a proactive role in the success of integrated skill development schemes of the Ministry of Textiles, Government of India, setting up on a pan-India basis 200 ATDC smart centers for training over 2.5 lakh candidates in just 5 years, emerging as the largest skill provider for the apparel sector. He will be formally introduced later by Dr. Irfan. Dr. Darlie Koshy is well respected as a mentor and guide by thousands of students and faculty members whom he has taught and mentored in the National Institute of Fashion Technology, National Institute of Design, and Institute of Apparel Management over the last quarter of a century. Dr. Koshy has been named several times as one of the thought leaders and 50 leaders in shaping Indian higher education. He has been a very prolific author, and he has contributed significantly to institution building. I had the privilege of interacting with him when I was heading the Indira Gandhi National Open University in Delhi during 2006-2011, and he has also set up the US, based on the contextualized US model of the community colleges, community colleges for skill development. That was a chain of institutions he has developed, and he has written several books, as I mentioned earlier. And we are extremely, on my personal behalf and on behalf of the Somaiya Bihar institution, let me welcome Dr. Darlie Koshy to this event. Our chairman, Mr. Somaiya, he wanted to be here for function. Of course, he's on holidays today, for a week. Definitely, he will be attending the lecture on Zoom. He has specifically asked me to convey his appreciation and thanks to Dr. Darlie Koshy for this, for accepting our invitation to come over this thing. So, our president of this function is again from the design field. He is senior faculty in the MIT Institute of Design, Professor Harshit Desai. Let me welcome Professor Harshit Desai to preside over the function. Somaiya group has been actively engaged and responsibly working in the area of education, health, social welfare, and promotion of culture for 3 generations. Starting with the first rural school in 1942, Somaiya Vidyavihar Trust was founded in 1959 to provide quality holistic education by Sri K.J. Somaiya, an entrepreneur and philanthropist. He was honored by the nation by the conferment of the Padma Bhushan for his service to society in 2000. He lived by the principle that we must give back to the society multifold. Believing that philanthropy has to be beyond giving out funds, he founded and promoted a number of public institutions of national interest, including hospitals, education, and cultural institutions in rural and urban India. His son, Dr. Shandilal K. Somaiya, a philanthropist, an eminent industrialist, and an extremely visionary educationist, was always the guiding spirit and inspiration to the Somaiya group of institutions. An industrialist with sharp business acumen, the welfare and upliftment of Adivasis, Girivanvasis, and the downtrodden in the society was close to his heart and culture and central to his core activities. Mr. Samir Somaiya, the current president and chairman of all the Somaiya Trusts and also the chancellor of the university, is spearheading the all activities now. Today, as I mentioned, today he is not with us. Usually he used to attend all the public lectures. Educated in Cornell and Harvard, Mr. Samir Somaiya is a proponent of holistic education and believes in the power of education to enhance the quality of the life of the society. Today, Somaiya Vidyavihar, including the Somaiya Vidyavihar University, the last institution in the fold, encompasses 34 institutions, almost 40,000 students, and 2,000 teachers. Its education institutes are spread across 2 main campuses, a 50-acre complex in Vidyavihar and another complex in Sion, both located in the heart of Mumbai. This is the only private university in Mumbai, in the Mumbai metropolitan. Of course, there are other deemed to be universities. It is enacted by the state legislature. We have also small campuses across rural Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Gujarat. Currently, we offer degree, diploma, and certificate courses at undergraduate, postgraduate, and doctoral levels. Somaiya Vidyavihar also runs a few autonomous postgraduate courses, vocational training courses, and high schools. Let me welcome all of you to this very important function. Let me also welcome our Secretary, General Jagbir Singh, and all my colleagues, directors and deans, heads of departments, invitees, dear students and faculty members to this function. This is, I understand that this is on the YouTube also, it's on the YouTube, and people also can participate in this public lecture on Zoom. Once again, welcoming you all and wishing the function all success. Let me conclude. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I request Dr. Irfan Siddhavatam, Director, School of Design, to introduce our speaker, Dr. Darlie Koshy.
Good morning to all. Respected Diets members, Dr. Professor Darlie Koshy and Professor Harshit. respected Vice Chancellor, Dr. Pillai, and respected General Secretary, Jagbir Singh sir. It's an pleasure to introduce Dr. Koshy. Dr. Koshy is a visionary educator, pursuing administrator, international speaker, and renowned author with 44 years of experience, 34 of which were spent in NIFT, NID, IAM, and ADDC. He is credited with transforming a number of institutions, notably National Institute of Design, we all know as NID, Ahmedabad, where he served as a director and a member of governing council for 2 terms, from 2000 to 2009. The National Design Policy, which was adopted by Government of India in February 2007, is ascribed by Dr. Koshy. Dr. Koshy has PhD in management from Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, and an MBA from School of Management Studies. Before joining NIFT as a founding chairperson of Fashion Management, New Delhi, he completed a long term of faculty development programs at Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT, State University of New York, USA. Dr. Koshy is a well-known higher and vocational education and training strategy, a thought leader in the textile, fashion, and retail industry, as well as design management strategies and skill development. Since 2009, Dr. Koshy has been a member of Executive Committee of Apparel Export Promotion Council, AEPC, and permanent invitee. He has also served as chairman of AICT NCVT DG and ET for Textile and Apparel Trade Curricula Committee 2012 to 14. Since 2012, he has worked closely with FICCI Skill Development Committee as chairman and of DG and ET Mentor Council 2013 to 2015. Founding board member of Sector Skill Council, AMHISSC, from 2013 to 2018, and a chairman of DGET Mentor Council, 2013 to 15, and since 2016, he has been also a member of FICCI's Higher Education Award Jury. He has given countless presentations in India and abroad, and has authored 3 significant books on international marketing and design management. Dr. Koshy's book, India Design Edge Strategy for Success in Creative Economy, a Rowley book publication 2008, and more recent, Runway to Skill India 2020 has gotten huge reviews altogether. So, Dr. Koshy, it is honor to you be here. Thank you very much for joining. I hand over the session for you to take ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. A very good morning to all of you. Professor Rajshekharan Pillai, Vice Chancellor of the University, Somaiya University, Somaiya Vidya Vihar University, Professor Irfan Siddhavatam, the head of the Department of Design, Professor Jagbir, the trustee of the trust which is managing all this, and Harshit Desai from MIT, and also my colleagues from Design Department at the university. There are many academics in this group, very dear students and faculty members. First of all, I want to wish you this only 4th of April, so we must wish you the new year, Gudi Padwa, to all of you. So let us hope that this season brings you a great amount of energy, enthusiasm, great success, and all well-being for the next several years ahead. While we are, Professor Rajshekharan Pillai mentioned that all the nice words were mentioned. I think everything is available on www.darliekoshy.com. That is all you have to say nowadays, So I thought, it is important to, being a literature student originally, I must at least quote Charles Dickens. It is an 1859 book. 150 years have gone by. But still, when I read it, I thought what quote should be used at the beginning. So I thought this is very good. He said in his opening sentence of Tale of Two Cities, many of you know that, it is the best of times, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was a season of darkness, it is a spring of hope. So I think we must focus on the spring of hope part of it, because there is no point in now crying over the period which passed by with full of darkness, and several thousands of people have suffered. And many lives have been lost, a lot of dislocation. The migrant labor crisis had seriously affected my mind. But I must tell you that this period, in a way, it was also best of times, because I thought, the best way to combat depression or combat such kind of black swan event, which is not really expected, is to make something positive. So in that period, I think the books which were mentioned, which I have written, 3 of them came through this period. One book is called, which Professor Rajeshwaran Pillai mentioned, The Runway to Skilled India. Run is about reskilling, upskilling, and new skilling. And the other book is called Not by Design. And the last book, which was released on March 24th, just before I came, is called All by Design. So this is also a kind of takeoff from John Lennon, the famous Beatles, person who said, life is what happens to you when you are making other plans. So somewhere in between Not by Design, which is a black swan event of COVID, and All by Design of yourself and by God Almighty, everything happens. So when I walked into this campus, 60-acre, beautiful, green, well laid out campus, I was thinking that this is like an oasis of harmony, of well-being. So in preparation, I just looked through what this university stands for. And I was wonderstruck by the kind of vision over the last years from 1952, and it was mentioned even 1942, and if you really look back, it is also 1902, original vision of also getting into education and health. And there's a great amount of ethical sense in this campus, great amount of value-based education approach. And I was hearing a speech by Mr. Somaiya to the nursing college. I just flipped through many other speeches, but this attracted my attention because the Ayur Vihar and the Vidya Vihar, the concepts. And in this nursing institute's talk, it is very interesting that how he perceives, as the president and chancellor, the entire education system. And he also says about his, how the Cornell and Harvard have influenced some of the thinking. So first of all, my congratulations to all of you, because only about 25% of Indians get into a college, which we call as, in a very euphemistic term, gross enrollment ratio, GER. GER is a very interesting term because large number of people study up to 5th standard. But by the time it touches 9th standard, dropouts happen. And by 12th standard, a huge numbers go out of the system. And just about, people claim that it's 30%, but it's really under 25%, the people who go to college. And if you take out the people in the correspondence courses, etc., then it is much lesser, must be 16, 17%. Professor Rajeshwaran Pillai, kind of, leader, will tell you more about it. But my impression is that there are 25% which I want to focus attention on you. One is the study by the Bird report on skills in general places India on 129th position out of 162 countries. They say that only 21.2% of our labor force are skilled. So you have just about 25% of the people in the country who are skilled, And there is another 25% of the people are only getting into colleges, the higher education. So in this kind of a country, it is Amartya Sen, the Nobel laureate, wrote. It is a very interesting statement he makes. The whole idea that you could somehow separate out the process of economic growth from the quality of labor force is a mistake against which Adam Smith had warned in 1776. So obviously, in 2014, when Nobel laureate Amartya Sen made this statement in an interview, the government was already bringing out the second national national skill development policy. But people think that that was a starting point. Now, the first national skill development policy was introduced in 2009. 2 years before that, I was part of the team, or I could spearhead the movement towards a national design policy, which was approved in 2007. So obviously, design is the background on which we were trying to build the entire leap forward of India, and then came the skill development policies of 2009 and 14. And then on July 15th of 2015, anybody in this audience who knows what is the importance of July 15th? Anybody? July 15th is the World Youth Skills Day. It is celebrated across India. It was a UN resolution based on which July 15th is celebrated as World Youth Skills Day. And on that day, the government of India announced National Skill Mission. Right? Now I stop here and go back and talk about some skills. Because every speech, you should know how the flow is going to be. Because sometimes, it is a long lecture, 40 minutes, and the students do not follow where you lost them. So let me tell you what is the structure. The structure is, first I tell you about this introduction, building up the context. Then I look at some of my field experiences from different sectors, from handloom, from fashion, from design, from skill development. And then I go back to look at the policy evolution and then some of the connected issues of skill development and make some recommendations at the end of the speech. But it's always good to start with the story because that catches attention of students especially. So let me start with the story. Some of you may probably know. Long ago, it is considered to be 6th BC, a part of South Italy, there is a place called Croton, which was under the control of Greece. And Greece used to have Olympiads, the ancient Olympiads. And people were all looking at these kind of competitions. And there was one young adult, his name was Milo, M-I-L-O, Milo. So Milo was a young adult, and he was practicing for wrestling. And in the neighbor's house, a small calf was born. So while he was going for training, he decided to lift the calf and keep on his shoulder. Young, small, tiny calf. Every day, then he repeated this process. Every day he was going for training, every day he will carry the calf. 4 years have gone by. What would have happened to calf? Calf would become what? Calf became a bull, large bull. It became a sight in their place. A man, grown-up adult, is carrying a massive, huge bull on the shoulder. And he went on to win as a young lad, also in the Olympiad, and as a wrestler. It is, if you Google, you will find that he won 6 times the wrestling championships in the ancient Olympiad. In fact, he is also given the credit for winning one major battle where he led from the front. Now the issue is that, why is it related to skill? I will tell you some of the lessons of this particular story. Number one, skill starts with a dream that you want to become the best skilled person in X demonstrable item. Running, swimming, mountain climbing, whatever. You have to then take some baby steps. Taking a baby calf on the shoulder was a baby step. But then 4 years later, it was not a baby step. Every day he repeated it. So that means a consistent repetition of practice. Practice maketh man. So he practiced every day. He was able to carry the bull. But then it has a problem. When he was originally carrying the scarf on the shoulder, people laughed. So people are going to make fun of you. In the initial times when you're doing something different, people are going to make fun of you. But did he get affected by that? No. He carried on for 4 years. And then it became a bull, it became even more laughable. But then when he became an Olympic champion, people understood that this was all worth it, because he became a hero. Even today, from the ancient Greece and southern Italy stories, probably the only name which is written is about this Milo from Croton. And it has also some problems, because in a consistent form of repetition of a skill, when you practice, people become very egotistic. I have become the greatest shooting champion. I have become the biggest training star. You must have seen the film Sena. In between, she falters, and, if you have seen the film, you will realize how that struggle of getting back was. Similar thing happened to this. I don't want to end the story, which is so nice, but also you have to watch off that skill training can lead you to a sense of elation that I am the greatest. So this Milo from Croton was walking through a forest, and he found a tree with a wedge, and he wanted to split it into two. That it's the fable or the legend says that his hand got caught in the wedge, and he could not extricate the hand, and he was eaten by some wild animals in the night. But that's a sad story. It should not happen to all the people who are skilled. But the point is that skill is something which you don't realize, and I didn't realize. I want to make a confession. When I joined NIFT, we had seen NIFT as the apex of fashion management, creating the fashion movement in the country, and we discussed very little about the pattern making skills or the haute couture, which actually means not high fashion, but the highest form of sewing skills. Haute couture means highest form of skills. Craft means also skills in some activity, but the word skills got into some discussion only by 2009. Whereas the country had some of the highest skills in the world. You look at my 10 years of handloom, I have seen traveling across Pochampalli to Malakalmuru to Balaramapuram to Kanjipuram to Chikankari work in Lucknow to, you name it, I must have traveled, because I was the first founding general manager of the National Handloom Development Corporation. So I had to set up the yarn banks, and I had to set up Bhagalpur, so many places. Unbelievable weaving traditions. Just one scheme by the government of India in 1977 with the Janata government killed it all, because they brought subsidy for the coarsest form of handloom weaving. And so every weaver who knew the finest form of skills brought down the skills to form to get the subsidy, to make the coarsest fabric to be woven. So after 1977, if you look at, the handloom went on a decline. So there were great skills in the country. Handicraft skills, unbelievable skills exist. Whether it is in jewelry, whether it is in bidri work, whether it is in Sangeda furniture, whether it is in Aligarh locks, whether it is Anjar knives, you name it, highest form of skills existed. But what is the name we get today? Only 21% of the people are skilled. And in 2009, when the National Skill Development Policy was announced, according to the government estimate, only 2% of the people had skills. So in 2014, when we took the estimation, after the second policy, it crawled into 5%. But in my view, that is a very mistaken way of looking at skills, because it actually puts in a perspective that all the other skill which existed without training, when you say about 2% or 21%, it means that you had a skilled certificate of some kind, a professional training of skills. But others, there are innate skills. I remember in Hindupur near Bangalore, which is actually one of the most drought-prone districts, we went for setting up a center full of women, more than 4,000 women assembled for that function. We asked them to raise hands, those who know embroidery. What would be the result? Almost all in the, in that group who are sitting there raised their hands. That means most of them knew embroidery of some kind. It may be ari work, it may be fulkari, it may be some other kind of or mirror work of Kutch or whatever, but they knew embroidery. So that means that India is actually a creative country with a great amount of skills, but we were afraid to speak about skills because something got divided. That is where I'm going to quote Richard Hamming, the acclaimed mathematician and author in his book, The Art of Doing Science and Engineering. This is Engineering Institute's block. He had explained the difference between education and training. Education is what, when, and why to do things. And training is how to do it. Now, you cannot separate, therefore, education and skills and say that universities are only about education. Because you have conceptual understanding of something, but if you want to do it, you need training. Because training is demonstrable. You cannot you cannot learn swimming by correspondence course. You have to swim. If you do not swim, that is one of the interesting professors I met in California. He told me that if there is a great natural disaster like what happened, a tsunami or an earthquake, and if you put theoretically from different countries in a place where it happens, more people in proportion will die from India. This was his research study, not just a statement. He said that because the life skills are missing in Indians. They do not paint their house, they do not fix the roof, they do not do plumbing, they do not repair an electric thing, they do not climb mountains, they don't go for trekking. So if your life skills are missing, even if you cannot run even faster to escape from a place. So life skill become very critical, and that is where probably you must remember this. But this other sentence which he says at the end, you may not like. Richard Hamming writes in the same book, teachers should prepare the students for the future of students and not for teachers past. I have stopped teaching when many people ask me to come and do some lectures. I say, look, I am out of sync because I am not updated on the subject, nor I have the technological skills sufficient to teach the subject. In fact, when I was director of NID, I did one of the good things which I did, if I recall, is a faculty development confession box. So there was a box kept. You need not write your name first. You will put that I do not know how to send an email. I'm talking about 2000 to 2009. I do not know how to use 3D, 3D techniques. Or, I do not know how to use CorelDRAW. Or I don't know how to do Adobe, whatever. You can put into that box, Mr. J.G. Sevaki recently died. He was made in charge to confidentially reach out to that particular faculty member and train them in that through as expert. I think it was highly, if most of the things they didn't appreciate what I did, but if at all there is something which they appreciated, was this particular step which I took because I knew that we are in a technologically new millennium, technologically new century. And there are a large number of faculty members who found average age was 48, 50, and it was not easy for them to make the technological leap forward. So we should remember that with the next 5 to 7 years, I think it is Bill Gates who said, we overestimate what is going to happen in the next 2 years, but underestimate what is going to happen in 5 to 7 years, or 5 to 10 years. With the 5G coming, with artificial intelligence, blockchain, robotics, and all these changes, you will not even imagine the kind of changes which are going to hit you in India in the next 5 to 7 years. Digital acceleration has been brought forth in this COVID period, and that is why it is best of times also. The country has stopped paying. I used to have always in my wallet 3,000 rupees, normal. But today, I only pay. Just now also I settled morning the bill with the Kerala House using Google Pay. This was unheard some time back. You used to settle, by cash. So cash transactions have more or less changed in the country. You have more or less the government services being offered. Large number of certificates in Delhi, for example. The current government has made it service online. This is all the beginning of, I think the dinosaur, that famous film, they say that it all starts small like this. But the film, by the time it ends, you can see how the entire film became. What is that famous dinosaur movie? Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, it all starts like that. What you're seeing are only the stirrings of the change in COVID. The change is going to be sweeping across, by which we have to look into the future from the present. That is where the skill context comes in. So it is something on which, as an introduction, I would say, and then I will tell a little bit about demographic dividend. And then I'll go to field experiences. What is demographic dividend? We have about 500 million people. Actually, if you look at the people between the age group of 15 to 29, is about 340 million. And the average age of India is just about 29. Whereas Europe and Japan, everybody. I was in Tokyo, and there was a university where I went to, Bunkai University. They had a major, a chamber. They were making entire city of Tokyo, people one by one, 80 people, 90 people every day. They were making study of the changes in the body of people above the age of 50. Because they were going to teach the fashion according to the aging population. Because Japan today has about 22% of the aged people, so they call it an aging or aged society. Whereas India with 1.3 billion people is still a young country, because almost 500 million are in the age group of youth, broadly. And if you take just the working age of 15 to 59, it will be about 340 million people. Now, demographic bulge, which Mark Tully called as demographic bulge of India, is not an ever-given phenomenon. It is a bonus as a country which we've got now. Because this period is defined for the India's golden period between 2005 to 2050. And the tapering of this demographic bulge starts happening by 2035, which is exactly 13 years from now. So your biggest opportunity as a country, in terms of what you call as demographic advantage, not a dividend yet, demographic advantage or a demographic bulge, is going to last between this period of 2022 to 2035 now. Now in this period, if your people under the age of 15 and people under the age of, above the age of 60 are larger than the people who are working, then there is no demographic dividend. It's minus, it's a deficit. But if the people in that age group, other than 15 and other than above 60, in between 15 and 59, are the working population, which is about 500 million now, out of which only 50 are women, 50 million are women. And if these people are doing productive work, which we just heard that is only 21% who have skills, if they are doing productive work, then the country progresses. But if that working population is not having the education and skills, that is what Amartya Sen said, that the country is unlikely to progress. Because it is like this. This university, this room has 200, 300 seating, and this is a basket of competency, skills, and knowledge. The people in the design community, the professors, the students in different skills and knowledge, they are sitting as a basket of skills and competencies. And when this weighs, they say that Somaiya University is doing very well. Or you say Harvard is doing very well. Or Columbia is doing well. The Ivy League University, because of the weight of the skills and competencies which they have. Otherwise, what is the difference between the universities' ranking? Now, therefore, to make the demographic dividend, two conditions should be there. One, the gross enrollment ratio of a higher education, literacy, numeracy, and illiteracy should be very high in a country. That is what differentiates China quite a bit. And the skills of the people to execute a work becomes very important, because that is where the people, our industry is complaining all the time. Jagvir Singh ji will endorse. They are telling that there is a employability gap. The skills which are given in a university or a particular system, when they go to the industry, they find that no, this is not up to the mark. So there is a gap between what industries want and what the universities and institutes are teaching. So if there is a kind of skill gap and knowledge gap and competency gap, when you implement a skill in a context, effectively it becomes a competency. Every skill is not a competency. You may have skill, but if I don't use it in a particular context, it does not become competency. If you do not create a competency, you do not have productivity. And if you do not have productivity, economic impact is nil. So that is why when I was director of NID, students used to present great ideas. I said, I like butterflies. Your ideas are just like butterflies. If I tell you that you handle the butterfly, it will get disfigured. You will feel very unhappy. But the fact is that if that idea is not converted like your riddle, which the professor was speaking about, the incubator, where it is converted into a commercial, productive outcome, it is just as good as seeing a butterfly. Very beautiful to look at. I had this parrot sitting on the golden shower tray today in front of Kerala House. I just looked at it and had tea. It's great fun to look at it. But beyond that, it does not have a productive impact. So many people talk from various podiums about demographic dividend. But demographic dividend comes when the advantage of demography is converted with productivity into an economic outcome. But there also, it is very important to remember that we have basically about 17% manufacturing, 55-60% service industry, and rest of the thing. So let us take 65% of services, 20% of manufacturing, 85%. The balance 15% is creative and cultural industries. So in this pie, the students from this university, as well as all other universities in the country and elsewhere, should be impacting this pie of economy through their skills and competencies to convert that particular sector into something which is going to leapfrog the economy further. That is why IT services industry, and we look at Mr. Subramaniam has been appointed as FedEx chief, or Satya Nadella, or whoever, Pichai. These guys, we feel very happy because from 1962 onwards, management skills were taught to India. IIM's, Delhi Engineering College became the IIT Delhi, and it became, the technology institutes came in India. There were a lot of technology and management skills came. They went to other countries and became successful. We enjoy them, no doubt. But it did increase the India's economy. So do not mistake demographic advantage for demographic dividend. So that is something which I wanted to tell you. I'm just going to mention a little more on the world skills standards. World skills were set up as a world skill organization post the Second World War, when there was acute shortage of skills in Europe. And I participated in, I didn't compete, but I went with the team in Sao Paulo in 2015, in Abu Dhabi in 2017, and 2019 in Kazan in Russia. In all the three places, unfortunately, our institutes and universities seem to be not knowing much about the world skills competitions. I found in Sao Paulo, for example, more than 5 lakh students were brought in by the government every day to visit the arena, just for them to understand how to make a bricklaying skill, where does it stand in the world? How do you make a pattern? Where does this jewelry making? Chef, how to make cake and pastries? Every kind of skill has been broadly divided into 6 categories, 56 skill, 92 countries participate. India started participating only in the last 10 years, only in the last 3 competitions. And if you look at the only gold which we have won is 2019 for water technology. That was a student, Mr. Narayan from Odisha. That's the only gold one. Do you mean to say that in jewelry making or in cake making or pastry making, India cannot win a gold? In fashion technology, despite NIFT being 30 years old now in the country, the student from fashion technology, which was not from NIFT, luckily, they were 150 points down than China and Switzerland and other people. They did not win a prize. So that means that our perspective about the skills became too manual oriented based on the caste system of India, and therefore we did not give the respect to the physical and other aspects of the skills in the country. And therefore vocational education never became part of the larger thinking. It became separated. Even today, though the national education policy speaks about it, I was asking in the morning, it's still a long way ahead in terms of it becomes a seamless process as in other parts of the world. I'll come to that a little later. I'll now recount the experiences from my journey, few of them, just to make you understand the value of the skills. In management, in handloom skills, I mentioned about commoditization. Commoditization is not just about handloom. You look at Amazon, 63% of any search for any product first hits Amazon, right? 63% of all searches. So it is an amazing, large system. You want to buy a product, you first go to Amazon and check out, right? Now, Amazon commoditizes the product. Amazon makes the merchandising policy standardized. Amazon makes the pricing discount policies standardized. And some of the digital direct-to-consumer brands enter Amazon system and find that, you have become commoditized. So commoditization is not just one handloom training. It is about entire system where you get commoditized if you are not careful. If you want your skills and brand to stand out, you must have both. You must have your own branding created, and at the same time, you must be able to use the channel with distinction, with differentiation. So this is one experience which I wanted to narrate to you. The second experience is from NID. NID, Dasharath Patel was a famous designer. He was part of the setting up of NID, and once he was hospitalized. So I went to Jivraj Mehta Hospital to see him. So I was surprised that on his bed, he was very ill, and there is a large flipboard and lot of pencils and lot of color painting and all the stuff which is required by a designer. So I said, Dasharath, you are so unwell and you are, why are you having all this? He said that if I put the pencil to a paper, my brain, my motor skills, coordination happens. And if I'm able to do that every day, that means that my faculties are intact and I'm able to continue my profession. I also found very interesting that faculty used to compete in the speed of execution with the students. I've never seen any other institute. I will name him S.M. Shah, who teaches sometime in your MIT. When he was teaching in NID, I said, teachers are not supposed to compete with students. He said, if I don't compete, how will I teach them tomorrow? So it's a very interesting perspective. I don't find such people anymore, but I agree that there is some truth in that kind of. The other point is that commoditization in handicrafts. I was recently invited by the apex body of the handicrafts to give some suggestions about their policy, their strategy. So I went to one factory which is by a leading exporter. And I found that they were making salt and pepper containers, the salt and pepper in ceramic containers. And they were making large artifacts using paper mache. So having seen, I was on the board of Cottage Emporium for some 7 years. I've been part of the Sona showroom days because HHEC was there, So I was surprised that, is this the stage of handicrafts? So my heart bled. So I came back and said that I don't want to say anything more, because this is not the handicrafts in my perception. Because NID made the most important, if as a student is sitting in the room, please look at the document Handmade in India. It's a famous publication printed in Singapore, published by Mappin. It is the ultimate resource to understand skills. More than 600 handicrafts clusters have been screened by 300-member strong research team during my director period, so I'm very proud of that achievement. It's a great book. So when you see Handmade in India and see India's crafts and skills, you are amazed that today we are not able to see those kind of things taken to the next stage like Japan has done. Take two examples. How Japan has changed their traditional skills into something very contemporary. You Google origami, and whose name will come up? Anybody in this room? Origami, which is a paper craft. Everybody knows how to fold a paper. But somebody converted that to $1 billion industry. Just that one technique called origami. Anybody in this room? Issey Miyake. Issey Miyake is a Japanese designer. But what is his clothes? He makes the fabric and the garments and then pleats it. Just pleating it like the paper. And this became Issey Miyake's standard signature. There is another great designer from Japan called Keniya Hara. If anybody, my son told me that you may dispense with all your design books as you are ending your career, but keep one book. He is in USA in San Jose, so I thought, what is the book he is going to say in design? He said, I have seen in your bookshelf, Keniya Hara's Designing by Design. It is about $1,000 now. please don't give that book away, because I was distributing some 400 books to various libraries. So Kenehara, I met him personally in Tokyo. He has studied Japanese culture of simplicity. I don't know whether you know this brand called Muji. You have heard Muji? No brand. He is the man behind Muji. How did he create this entire sensibility around design? Because of Japanese culture. Now that is the transformation from value to value addition to value creation. Everybody talks from this kind of lecture forums about India should value add. I disagree. India should value create, because India is a country capable of creation of value. Edward de Bono, who has made the 6 hats in multiple colors you would have heard about, he said a very interesting statement about China. China, he does not call it a creative country, but India is a creative country. Even if a vegetable vendor on the side will polish his tomatoes and they arrange in color, you look at how they sell mangoes, it's a creative country. They have a painter inside somewhere. But to that country, we are telling that you must only become the common denominator of the lowest level of skills. That is not going to work. Now, I want to tell you a very simple quote from Tim Cook. How many of you know who is Tim Cook? Raise your hands. Tim Cook is Apple's earlier CEO. Tim Cook was asked in an interview, what do you think is China's strength? Why do you think China has become the factory to the world? He said that you are mistaken. Everybody says that China has a cost advantage because it's a communist country. But he said that if I make a call in China for chip designers or Apple interface designers, a large football ground will not be enough for the people of that highest skills to assemble at one single call. Because the skill width and depth of China is so high that they are able to make a product from General Motors. One of the guys was sitting beside me in some meeting in Beijing. He was telling me in 60 days, we can actually take from concept to consumer, product to production, and in another 90 days, we can take it to consumer. That kind of fast transformation of design ideas. So Tim Cook completely demolished the myth that China is about cost advantage. It is about the skill advantage. They have the depth and the width of the skills to match any kind of products which you throw at them. India does not have that depth and skills, because anyway our manufacturing is just about 17% of the economy, or 20% even if you stretch everything, MSMEs, everything. And only 5 million people jobs are guaranteed by the organized sector. Rest of the jobs, some 12, 17 million people come into the market every year. And if you want to find jobs, you have to find in SME sector. So the government now says in the skill development 4.0 that you should become entrepreneurs. If you want to become entrepreneurs, you require some different skills, which I'll come to later. So I told you what was my field experience of NID. And at a macro level, I wish my career was made upside down. That is, I started my career with ATDC and understood more about skills, and then went to NIFT, and then went to become director of NID. It would have been a different story. Because these institutes are actually premier institutes of skills. Now, NID has been given the status of INI in 2014. What is an INI? Institutes of National Importance. Have you read the description of what is an INI? It says that an institute which can influence and improve the skills in a region can be given the status of INI. They don't use the word knowledge. They use the word a particular area or a region. If you can influence through setting up that INI, then the INI status should be given. So why is it that premier institutes are shy of telling that we are the premier institute of skills in the front, knowledge at the back? University is knowledge in the front, skills at the back, where I studied. I didn't have any skills because knowledge was prime. It was preparation for IAS or MBA, whatever. But it was not really acquiring skill, was never part of the story. But my message, therefore, is that while you are in this university, use every opportunity, like that guy of Milo of Croton did, to acquire skills, and it will grow with you to take you to another stage altogether. Knowledge, let it be all there. It is ubiquitous. Mostly, I get knowledge from Google. So today, if I want to look at Somaiya University, what did they do? There are so many video lectures of various people, including Professor Rajasekhar Pillai and various people. So I don't need to ask any one of you. I just sat down yesterday, last 2 days, Googled it. Knowledge is ubiquitous. Not that, the faculty will have to move from information to insight. The moment they are telling you insight, then they become faculty, not by giving information. Information is available in Google. Faculty is meant for converting information to insight, knowledge to more and more experiential, and knowledge more and more insightful. So this is the other point which I wanted to mention. Then about scope versus skill. This is one of the major problems I have. I go to any university in US, how many students do you have? They say that we have 30,000 students. I asked Mr. Ram Gopal Rao, the IIT director, the other day, how many students you have? He said about 8,000 people. 162 acres land, massive infrastructure. But the student number in India, we are still shy, telling that we must have. Even in FIT where I studied, there were 14,000 students. It's just a block of buildings in 27th Street on 7th Avenue. Large scale, they cultivate and employ people. You have the greatest opportunity now. I was very happy when Professor Irfan and Mr. Sundaram, Ramakrishnan Sundaram was taking me down. They said that we are going to have hybrid classrooms. I'm very happy to hear the universities also thinking about it. Today it is possible after COVID, because of the digital acceleration, to have more students take your advantage of your university. And that is a great advantage which it opens up. And that is the scale which I'm talking about, scope versus scale. When I came back from NID, I was always an elitist person, because we had the students which are selected through a national test, and we are training them. They are already good. They don't really require a director. I am sure that if you ask NID students who was your director, they may not remember. I don't remember when I was doing my doctorate, the first 2 directors. I only remember Professor V.S. Raju, because nobody bothered about who is the director. The student was interested in a good faculty member. Right. But all the NIF students remember me because I taught them. There's a big difference. If you teach somebody, they remember you. But if you have been director, they may not, so a director teaches. So Rajasekhar Pillai sir is telling me that he still teaches in, polymers, and, he is a chemistry top class brain. So he still teaches. I met Professor Mashelkar because he is the chairman of my higher education jury. He still teaches. He has so many PhD students. That is where it connects them. So the point which I'm trying to tell you is that in a system where we are not scaling up, there's knowledge dispersal. Digital classrooms, they were able to use our best faculty to train people in some 200 centers digitally through Google Suite and for Zoom in just after a few days of COVID. 79 to 82% people attended. Yesterday I was telling the person who chaired our board meeting, academic council meeting in some other place where I was, that 79 to 82% attendance on digital platforms. Great. So if we are able to use this scale versus scope understanding, I went to IIT Powai, there also the number of students were less compared to the large campuses people have. So one should understand that, every inch of the place has a cost. And we need to optimize these facilities and get larger number of people into the system. And the last, last lesson is about CSR funding. I discovered a great thing from US brand. How many of you have heard GAP? GAP USA. GAP USA has a wonderful program called PACE, P-A-C-E. Personal Advancement and Career Enhancement is the name. It's mostly for women students. And we got a big grant as CSR funding from GAP to train women students to think about moving from home to a factory or office mindset, to make them empowered. And this was a great success in the skill development program, because unless you bring more women into the workforce, India is never going to become a 5 trillion economy. Undoubtedly, women is just about, in fact, they were about 20%. After COVID, it has come down to 16% labor participation of women. So if the women are not in the forefront of becoming productive, as it is 96% in Korea, for example, India is not going to become a $5 trillion economy. So the biggest thing is to look at attracting women to take up industrial work culture from a home-based work culture, and that transformation is through CSR funds happening in the organization which I was heading. More than 25,000 students. They had already done about 300,000 people in India, 400,000. Mr. Elvis Francis is the chief of this program globally, and it's a fantastic program. And I have gone to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Vietnam and Cambodia to see the factories there. The women are all now joining this program, and they are able to stand on their feet. I believe every university should talk to GAP or some kind of such organizations and bring in great amount of this transformation to our girl students. I did a little bit of that in MSU Baroda by starting a center there in the university, and it is continuing to do good work. Now I go back to a little bit before I wind up the recommendations, to the policies, because this is not your agenda for listening to me on policies, but still a little bit. So the skill development 1.0, I call it as 2009, was focused on basically creating National Skill Development Corporation. They created national sectoral skill councils and started off the skill program through various yojanas, but main thing, they left it to different departments of government to run their program. Like Ministry of Textiles, it was Integrated Skill Development Scheme. But the biggest problem was that sectoral skill councils are now something like 50, 55 sectoral skill councils, where I told you World Skills Body has only 6 categories for all the skills. And if you keep on splitting up everything, you lose the sight of, you can miss the woods for the trees or the trees for the woods. See, when I studied MBA, we had just one management program. What does management mean? Management means managing resources and people. People are also part of the resources. And driving towards an outcome. This is all management. Now, any industry needs this. So there was no industry division for oil MBA, for this MBA, that MBA. And design is also happening the same. I was just telling in one of the major addresses at NID in the semester opening address, I told the students there will be only 3 divisions: products, services, experience. Every product today requires also service. Every service also requires to become an experience. So if you do not connect all the 3 into 3 major silos and give responsibility, it is unlikely that they will understand. I told Professor Irfan an example of Karan Rahul Mishra, who is a famous designer, who was my student in NID from 2003 to 5. He used to run to David Shore's class of animation, because David Shore used to teach fast drawing of animation frame by frame. Now what does Rahul Mishra learn from running from apparel class to animation? He can sit in a Paris show and quickly draw fast drawing of the features of that particular drawing in no time. So what is important is that interdisciplinary is only one concept. But in a university, you have a great chance of transdisciplinarity. I told Professor Irfan in the car. Transdisciplinarity was possible because there was 17 times. There was a wood metal shop, I mean, we call it BMW. Behind Metalworks, there was some, design vision center. There was a basketball, BMW, basketball court. All kinds of stuff were there in NID. People used to move from one silo to another, and that interspersed nature of the seamless understanding of travel of the human mind is what produces innovation. Innovation is never in one subject. Innovation in the core of that subject, encountering with other subjects when you create the discipline. A classic example is Helsinki, Aalto University. Aalto University has brought in engineering, medical sciences, humanities, all under as one university called Aalto University. Who is Aalto? Anybody in this room? Aalto, not the car. Alvar Aalto is a famous architectural and furniture designer. The only designer whose picture appears in a currency note is Aalto, Alvar Aalto. In his name, the university is set up in Helsinki. Now that is the process of this coalescing, an amalgamation of concepts and encounters between different disciplines, which is important today because India is moving into a creative economy. And my book, which was referred to, Indian Design Age, where Ratan Tata ji had did the foreword, main argument is that you should have this creative economy understanding to understand why design is important. Design is a horizontal force. Professor Irfan was from IT, cyber security area, but he's heading design because today the technology platform is driving a lot of design innovation. So that is where, this kind of innovations will happen. So in 1.0 was about all this. 2.0 got linked to Ministry of Skills and Entrepreneurship. It set up a new ministry. In government, when the ministries are set up, you have a lot of expectations, and that is what they tried to do. They did some good work, and it started focusing on Kaushal Vikas Yojana by bringing all the different training programs under one single umbrella. Now, it has a problem, because customization and personalization of skill training is critical to skill training. I discovered that was one experience I missed out to tell you. In Tamil Nadu, if you want to teach a person, you have to speak in Tamil. An instructor's communication is the key to the skill training, how he transfers the skills. In NID, behind the teachers who were making drawings, one faculty used to stand behind, because if you do not hold the pencil correctly, and if you do not look at the perspective drawing in that same vision as you want to take it, you may not get it right. So it is very important that the transfer of skills is done by an accomplished person who knows also local language to connect, especially in demonstrable lower down skills. So we set up the Training of Trainers Academies in 2010-11, when people were actually laughing at me. Why are you asking? In the swaying skills, everybody knows. But I told them that let us conduct a test for our 600-member faculty to just do a simple test, thread the needle. How to put the thread in a swaying machine, which is industrial swaying machine. You will not believe, not even 10 to 15% knew how to thread a needle. Faculty members. Then we made this program called SMART, Skills for Manufacturing of Apparel Through Research and Training. It is not the smart bazaars which you see now. I made the first SMART. We had already registered this name in 2009-10. But the full form was different. Skills for Manufacturing of Apparel Through Research and Training. Made every faculty member undergo this SWIFT program to acquire the skills which were required. So this is important. Now the skill development 4.0, 3.0 was this devolution of skills into the state governments. And Subrado Bakshi, the Odisha Skill Development Authority, says, if the national skill development policy is an arrow, the tip of the arrow should be part of the state. If you are telling about Maharashtra, which has a lot of sugar mills, you need that is where the Somaiya's origins, if you look at, but they have done a lot of value addition, value creation by moving it step by step into finished products. Now, if you look at the topography, geography, and the economic realities of Maharashtra, you may require a certain kind of skills. That is what Catholic University in San Diego does. The university is told that you must develop an ecosystem for wine, because wine industry is very big in San Diego. How to do packaging for wine, how to test the best wines, how to manufacture. Universities are creating an ecosystem of skills and knowledge around them. And that is what Professor Rajashekharan Pillai initiated when he was Vice Chancellor of IGNOU, where I feel that, whoever later came, destroyed a great concept. You can call it cluster university, community university, whatever. But the cluster and community requires a certain number of skills to be trained in the location. It can be garment making, it can be Agra peda making, it may be chocolate in Ooty, it can be the milk buns in Dehradun, it can be, Firozabad bangles, it can be Moradabad the metal works. Now it is all kinds of, it was a Pittal Nagari it was called earlier. Now it is not Pittal Nagari anymore. A lot of skills of these kinds. But you require a different approach. We were giving AS degree through your initiative. And I always laud him for that kind of, grounded realities. Now the last point of the skill development 4.0 is about the COVID. COVID made it possible to look at theory intensity and skill intensity of a course. Now in a course of pattern making, you require probably 50-50, 50% theory intensity, 50% skill intensity. In a sewing, it may be 30% in theory intensity and 70% skill intensity on the job. Now, if you are able to make a matrix of all the QPs, the qualification packs of the different expo council, but unfortunately they are not doing it. They're simply sitting on that and waiting for 5 years to pass by. By the time these skills have become irrelevant. If you make a matrix, you will spend less on the course. Today, DDGKY program brings a student, puts up for 12 months in a hostel. Who makes the money? The provider of the food and the hostel. The teachers are paid anyway bigger amounts. The contractors are very happy because you are putting up in some places and they are studying the course. That is not how the skill education, today with the hybridization shows you the way that some part of this course can be done minimal expenditure and then they are put into the context. That is what we did in MBA. Course was general, but we had a final semester project in which the industry, I was interested in textiles, so I went to Madura Coats. Somebody else was in tires, they went to Apollo Tires. So people chose the MBA according to what they liked, their final project. But the course was essentially the same. We had marketing, we had finance, we had this and that. That's how it went. Today also, I stand here and speak to you, and I was part of many boards. I understand the finance because Professor Prasad taught us well, finance in that course. That is good enough for us to manage. If you want finance to be advanced, take it the last semester. So maybe that universities should look at how to take more students into general MBAs and train them. And I was amazed that the programs became more and more taxing to the people who are implementing it. For example, some of the courses have prescribed that you must have an air-conditioned cafeteria. For a skill training in sewing, if you want to set up an air-conditioned cafeteria for the students, you can imagine the expenditure more than the sewing machines. So if you make skill programs in this kind of highly capital-intensive way and less intensive on the quality of the faculty, you may get very disastrous results. So you need to look at how to make it sustainable model of skill training. Now I want to come to the aspirational quotient and come to the conclusion. India is an aspirational group of youth. When you go today to an affinity, is there affinity haircutting in Mumbai? Affinity hair salons, or I don't know which is the brand here. But if you go to affinity haircutting salon, which is called beauty salon, you can see very handsome men and very well-presented women standing in front. Everybody appreciates them. But earlier, the original job profile, that was of a barber. Nobody wanted to go to a barber shop. But it became a beauty salon. The profile in the job market changed. Earlier, people were not looking at a cook, but when cook became a chef, it changed. It becomes, from a carpentry to interior, it changed. So nomenclature is very important. I have been telling to the government, some of these names itself are driving away students because they are not wanting to be part of that kind of manual orientation which they perceive. So aspirational quotient looks at some of the changes which we need to make in these programs. So now let me just wind up with the recommendations. Recommendations, one is from supply-driven to demand-driven to innovation-driven skilling. I went to Dinesh, some garment making in Kannur. So I asked this man who met me, the chief, how do you select the people? Because we had many peg tests and this and that, color tests and all that for selecting people. But he said that POW or, do they have the hands and the legs, we take them. Do they have the hands? Do they have the legs? We select them. So the point was that they were going by supply-driven approach, whoever was coming. But when we went to UK, that was very interesting. We won the UK India Skill Forum Award. So on that I went to as part of the delegation. In the UK Skill Center, one of the major centers, they had multiple rooms, one for visual merchandising, one for apparel making, one for bricklaying, one for some other various skills. And any student can walk in there and train free of cost for 2 weeks in any of them. And once your aptitude is tested and you say, okay, I want to do visual merchandising, then you don't do the whole course and discover that it was not for me. They discard it after the 2 weeks and they go into the course which they have selected. Once they have selected the course, the government steps in and pays their fees to the training provider. Once they finish the training and they notify that you have finished the training, the companies who have signed up for the guild as a pledge, select them. If you are waiting for 3 months, the government continues to pay. If you are selected, the government starts cutting in small installments the expenditure paid into the training. After a period, they can again upgrade, for which also the government will pay. It becomes a self-sustainable model of skill training. Here the point is that it is a grant-based thing. The students are not paying anything, service provider is not paying anything. In Malayalam there is a saying, Katile tadi teverde ana valiyada vali. Forest belongs to somebody, the elephant belongs to somebody who takes the, nobody cares. So that is not how it is. You must have a stake in what you want to do. That is where it becomes demand-driven. It becomes, moves into the next stage of innovation-driven, where the universities. In my system, I would have done away with all the skill providers and attached to all the engineering colleges and universities the skill training. Like one of the universities, I am very impressed. I don't want to name anybody, but I was very impressed in the university's compound. They have created a skill zone for some of the things connected with engineering, some of the things connected to optometrics and all that. And they go and trade. It is not compulsory or anything. Even a cafe day was training them how to mix coffee, all that. Very good. Because you can choose what you want to do. And that is what in Kerala government did with Asian Development Bank, ASAP program, acquisition of additional skills. We were the largest provider. We got the award for the best performance. So I know personally that it was a very successful scheme. So you need to look at, how to do this kind of a system by which the engineering colleges, the local colleges, the universities become part of, rather than some anonymous person who has just registered and makes all the tick boxes, gets a contract for thousands of crores of rupees to train. They have no understanding of the student nor the skill. It becomes a waste of money, of government resources and time of the students. The last one is, in all the airports you will find still the book because it's only 1 year old. It is called Runway to Skilled India. I was joking in the Vice Chancellor's room. I call it a runway because the plane has not taken off. It is still on the tarmac. But the full form of run is reskilling, upskilling, new skilling. Even government like this word which I use, I actually wrote about it in 2012 and 14. But then I thought a book will be good. So I expanded the strategy that a lot of thing is about reskilling. My daughter has a Celerio car. I used to drive a normal, Icon car for a long time. I can't drive her a Celerio because it's automatic. I need some training. So I asked my current office driver to take me in some kind of automatic car and teach me. 3-4 hours I could manage. That is reskilling. Lot of things are reskilling. A potter's wheel manually done becomes a mechanic, you require some kitchen equipment. There is a famous story about a professor who read a manual and could not assemble the product. By the time he returned from the college, the servant maid had already fixed it up because she knows how exactly the product is made. She used all the stuff and made the kitchen, whatever that mixer or thing properly. But the professor reading all the manual could not do it. So it is like that, in terms of reskilling. Upskilling is when you are going into a totally different sphere. That is where I want to mention some alphabets. Now in this room, how many of you are I-typed individual? I means you have deep skill in something. But there are also, not Tim Cook, IDEO's chief, used to say that you must select people in engineering, in management, who are T-shaped, not I-shaped. In T, you have functional enterprise, you have creative enterprise, and you have the skill. And the skill you are able to expand to the two spheres around, and you become a T individual. I believe I'm an X individual. X is when you are reaching out to multiple stakeholders. It can be teacher community, it can be government, it can be your board of shareholders, whatever. Then there can be M type of person. You have two different skills, graphics and IT, let us say. You combine it together in the middle to create a new skill which you are going to use. Or you can have a pi skill. Pi, the two things hanging, but actually there are two independent skills. And both are useful. So you must be able to orient your skill and your objective in life to look at whether I want to be an X individual, or you want to become an I, or you want to become a T, or you want to become an E. Expertise, exploration, execution. Some people are damn good at execution. Anything in my office I want to execute. Yesterday I saw a person who was organizing this massive event. He's a national organizer. I knew him from Ahmedabad days. His daughter recognized me and came to me. Uncle, I was 6-year-old. I have come to your house where the peacock used to come and tap. I was astounded. A girl of 6 years, after 14 years, recognizing me and coming and telling that I have come to your house. That person's father was a jail convener. I don't want to name, but he has done a stupendous job. Some people are damn good at organizing, execution. But some people are good in planning. Some people are good in exploring, whatever. You have the E type of people, you have the M type of people, you have the pi type of people. I have expanded this theme into this and told the government, do not put everybody into I skill. In fact, I wrote somewhere that I skilling with a common denominator, the lowest common denominator, is actually going against the principle of expanding human potential. you may end up actually reducing the potential of human beings, which is not the objective. Our objective is to maximize the potential of the people, of the students, of the community. So you need to look at this concept a little more and look at the run strategy for India. And every university, if you can look at reskilling, upskilling, and new skilling into different silos and create an ecosystem for them, that will be a good idea. Now, to end the thing, I will also end with a small story, which I heard Asim Premji telling in the 2002 convocation of IAM, which I like the story. You may all know that. If you put a frog in the kettle, if you put a few more minutes, if you put a frog in a kettle and increase the temperature degree by degree, what will happen to the frog? Frog will die. But if you increase the temperature suddenly, what will happen? It will jump out and save its life. So you have two choices. One is when a digital acceleration is happening, you are making small steps to improve yourself. And probably by the time you are able to get around to doing that, then maybe it may be too late. But you know that in 5 to 7 years, 5G is going to change and you have voice-based, just like internet 30 years back started influencing you. Where is that noise coming from? So if you look at the Time magazine, in 2006, December, put an interesting cover on the front cover. Anybody remembers? 2006, you must not have been born probably. I know, you are born already. The cover page said you. They put a mirror on the front page and said you. That was the person of the year. That was the turning point of internet. 2006, internet really boomed. And of course, then 2008-9, we had a meltdown, etc. But the internet boom is connected to that particular cover page of Time magazine. Now, when internet happened, we are still on the web trying to do things. But some people, if you say, they send you voice message. Have you seen that? Many of the village people, in fact, are more comfortable with sending voice message. Now, everything in India and abroad are now going to change over to a voice-based system. All your pads and keypads and your system will change completely. Everything, you will be talking to various equipments. And the moment that kind of a digital acceleration comes into voice-based systems, replacing the pads on which you are typing, etc. Already you can see Google advertising for your transformation of your voice to text as a separate system. You will see generally their advertisements coming. Actually, it is already there, but it is fast expanding where all your interfaces will change into voice-based interfaces. The life will completely change. The skills will be different. A small skill, I find it very difficult actually to do certain things in certain, operations, even on whereas my daughter is very good. She is, deputy manager of digital marketing, and she is very fond of all the stuff but she finds it very difficult to do banking. But I find it very easy to do banking on internet and mobile. Certain people have certain, type of skills in a certain equipment and device. And when the device and systems change, the medium becomes a message, and your entire life changes. So, ladies and gentlemen, I stop at this point. We are living in, I think it was Jawaharlal Nehru said. No, I must say that this is not Jawaharlal Nehru said. Jawaharlal said, do everything in light, in sunlight. There is a Chinese proverb. I don't know how many of you have heard. Chinese proverb has a 3-step trilogy in the Chinese proverb. The first one is, may you live in dangerous times. Interesting times they used. The interesting word meant dangerous times. May you live in interesting times. I think we are living through the most interesting times as of now. The second part of the trilogy said that, may you come to the attention of authority. It means that you may get picked up by the government for a income tax raid. So do not think that everything which you are planning should happen. The last in the trilogy is that, may you get what you wish for. Now imagine what you are wanting in life to happen. Sometimes if you don't wish it right, you may end up getting what you have actually wished for, and you wish that you hadn't got it. So it's very important to understand, it's a very crucial point of your student life. Choose what you wish for, and be concerned about how to get to the point where you want to drive home, one single skill can completely come to your aid. I believe that it is not my design skills, or it is nothing which has helped me to become the director of the National Institute of Design, or to be part of fashion. I didn't know that what is gauntlet or how many stitches are per inch, nothing. But I had communication. I had also creativity. And with these two things, one has come 44 years in travel, in this journey. So ladies and gentlemen, develop your cultivative skills, which will stand as a kind of backbone through your journey of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your stupendous insights on skill development and for your engaging stories, anecdotes, and personal experiences. The floor is now open for questions.
They've understood everything.
We now invite questions.
They are hungry.
It seems like, no? May I request everyone to please be seated? Do you have questions for our speaker? Please, we'll give the mic.
Yes, madam.
Hi, good afternoon, sir, and thank you for such a wonderful, insightful speech. I just had one question out of curiosity. I was seeing, I'm working on a project, and I was looking at one video of the Bidri art. You spoke about the Bidri art.
Karnataka, yeah.
Karnataka, yeah. They said there's only one family which is now dealing with the Bidri art. So what is the government or doing to, to preserve these art which is completely now just restricted to one family now? I mean, then the art is completely gone. There's nothing left for the next generation.
I think your comment is absolutely valid. Since I lived in Gujarat, in Ahmedabad for a long time, Patola, you have heard about Patola?
Yeah, Patola.
Patan is about little under 1.5 hours away from Ahmedabad.
Yeah.
I went to see the the Patola making family.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to see the looms put in under plastic covers.
Yeah.
And the guy who took me around is the son or grandson. And he was telling me that he's a student in SEPT, in architecture. And he is no more interested in Patola weaving. And it is his uncle who is still doing something. And there were 5 families which were involved in Patola weaving. Some of them shifted to Baroda. And they started making a little bit of limited type of Patola, and started corrupting the practice, you can say, to make it more commercial. And they say that they cannot beat them. And this family, original Patola weaving family, is therefore more or less abandoning. It's not only about Bidri. Number of languishing crafts have this problem because the next generation, but what is the root cause of the problem? There is Kennedy School of Governance in Harvard. One of the professors who made a presentation said, if your country is progressing at 9% GDP increase, and you are still paying to the, let's say, craft person, 300 rupees. In Kerala, for even a headload worker will get 900 to 1,000 rupees. A carpenter, you will have to pay 1,200 rupees. So if you are getting 300 rupees after toiling hard 12 hours, they are not likely to do. But if you, and also if you commoditize the product, you are unlikely to get anything. Some Rahul Mishras and Anju Modis and Ritu Berries and Ritu Kumars have tried to work in Chanderi or some places, but it needs to be done by which the weaver gets a remunerative wage and the product is also sold at a higher price. And this professor said that if you are not doing that, it is unlikely that these low value items and low value skills. So you have to move to high value, high skills, higher products, branded products. Then you will pay better wages. So there is no answer, unless you revolve this. From a vicious cycle, it should become a virtuous cycle.
Absolutely.
So how to create a virtuous cycle is the question. I have no
also,
answer.
sorry,
Yeah.
one more thing I just...
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, ma'am.
Also, one more thing, there's nothing, I think there are no initiatives for building consumer awareness
Right.
about
That's
handicrafts and handlooms. I don't think many people can recognize an original
But ma'am, you know,
Banarsi sari or something
the point
like that.
is that people are buying fashion, people are buying lifestyle, people are not buying bidri craft, or people are not buying that particular, they want a Sankeda furniture because it goes with their village type of interior design.
Yeah.
So our government, I told in many places, I have written also, that Ministry of Brand and Design was created by China.
Correct.
Similar ministry was created in Singapore. In fact, I told in a presentation to Secretary Textiles, the Ministry of Textiles show that you are still raw material oriented.
Yeah.
But what people are buying is a fashion. Let's say that, I saw the, beautiful shawl, which was something like with a tassel. So obviously, that particular product has a certain context in which you can put it, right? Instead of calling it power loom, mill made, handloom, khadi, silk, wool, these are not concern of a customer. You may have this particular ikat weave on your shoulder, but you may be wearing a wool suit. So it is not textiles and yarn and products which the customer is buying. Customer is buying now fashion.
Fashion.
So unless bidri becomes part of lifestyle,
Exactly.
and they buy the lifestyle according to what their house needs, a certain object from bidri or a bastar. Bastar became very popular in Delhi because large number of farmhouses came out. So they needed all these figurines made in bastar to stand out in the corner. So it's a lifestyle they are buying. They are not buying bastar. They don't care a damn whether you are protecting bidri or bastar. I mean, let us be frank. Customer is not bothered about the government's objectives or the objectives of social engineering. They are interested in their particular house,
Lifestyle.
that particular looks. Yes, sir.
So my question was, the corollary question, that a brand like Fab India has really taken the artisan not only to all over the country, but also all across the globe, for instance. It's a global brand today.
Right.
But that's where he is, or at least the guy who started it, the American who started it way back in 1959, really had this vision of really taking the small little artisan right across India, and of course giving a very, very good remuneration for the brand.
For the people sitting in the room, it may be very interesting, your question. John Bissell, the father of Blossom and all the, the current generation, John Bissell was the UNDP expert brought by Government of India to study the curriculum for textiles as a UNDP expert. And when UNDP was, UNDP was winding up the year in which I joined, I got a call from Ford Foundation, not UNDP, Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation brought him, not UN. Ford Foundation brought this expert. They said that, we have about 69 lakhs left over in this budget. Koshy, can you do something about it? So we discussed together and set up India's first chair in textiles called John Bissell chair. And John Bissell was an exporter, importing from India and supplying to US. So obviously the foundation of John Bissell was rooted very much in Indian textiles being promoted globally. What the current generation did is converted that into a retail format to sell in India. But, in this forum, I don't want to be critical, but in John Bissell chair when I was setting up, I don't want to name anybody, but I called the management of Fab India and told that we are a national institute, setting up a chair in your father's name. And would you like to contribute equal amount so that we can make it more substantial and have it running for longer duration? None of the letters were replied. So it is important that, where I found the difference in this university is that it is a 100-year-old engagement with education and health. Even today the engagement continues. So that is very important. You can make money, you can set up anything, but you need to also look at where you are investing money, where you are investing your time. I am sure it is not about money, but the lack of interest in engaging with the new community. So please remember that organizations continue to invest in health and education, which Professor Rajesh was telling in the room, that they continue to benefit from the ecosystem around for a long time to come. Good examples abound around us. So unfortunately, I don't think the vision of John Bissell is completely translated to the current system. Yeah, Professor Ravasi.
Sir, one of the very interesting best mirror is made in Kerala, in
Aranmula Kannadi.
Yes. And in this auditorium, I know only 10% may know about it. The remaining will say the Belgian glass.
Yes.
Because of the branding. And when I went to the workshop there, they had two apprehension. They were ready to file for a patent, provided it is not going outside the family, and they are ready to give us the chemical composition so that a larger mirror could be made. But then they said no technical institute have ever contacted us for us to let it go that way, so that it can be professionalized and not just be with few families there.
No, I completely agree with the GIS system, the geographical indication registration, whether it is Darjeeling, Assam, Jeera rice from Kerala, Aranmula Kannadi is also GIS registered products. In fact, one of the presentations I made to the chairman of Handicrafts recently is about taking up the GIS products and expanding the Expo Bazaar to focus on GIS. There are so many GIS products which can be marketed better. I agree with you. I have no solution to offer, but one of the marketing principle is that if you have more people joining the thing, if you have a McDonald's, if you have a Shoppers Stop, you have a Big Bazaar, you have Lifestyle, all the people do well. You have an anchor shop and you have 3 options to choose from. But if you are alone and standing and do not share anything, it is unlikely that it will survive. It will die. So it is better that Aranmula Kannadi or anything for that matter. Knowledge is not to be made into a preserve and kept confidentially. The more you write it, the more people will talk about run. That is my approach. If you do not talk about it, with you, Koshy is gone, that is gone. But at least some people will say there was this concept run. Let us look at it. That is what will remain. More people engage, more people you share without looking. Do that, You do your karma and continue. I feel Aranmula Kannadi is doing great injustice by not sharing the patent, So yes, sir.
Sir, do you have any suggestion for converting the name of plumber?
I know. Yes. No, I feel everybody is a maintenance engineer.
Yeah.
They should call it, water system maintenance engineer or something, so it will change. I agree with you that, some people do not like this. I have written 2-3 examples of numerical control operator or something, which was earlier a different name. And they changed it. They got very good candidates now applying for the job. Especially marriage market. When you write a darzi, nobody bothers. But you write fashionist, changes. You write a stylist, it changes. Everybody became a fashion boutique from the earlier shop of darzi. People used to make darzi, mochi. They used to make this as almost, curse words, in India, because of the caste system association. So we must change, along with the society, we need to look at what kind of transformational nomenclature and the context in which they are going to be put in. I am very impressed by seeing the affinity and beauty salon people. They are so well dressed and, black dress and nice hairstyle. You feel like going there just for a haircut because the atmosphere is very good. So people need to change the atmosphere, the context. All the jobs will become more and more applicable. This wedding planners. Earlier, कौन था कोई पंदल लगा था, पंदल वाला है बोलता था. अभी ऐसे नहीं, wedding planner. सब चीज change हो गया. You will marry your daughter to a wedding planner, but not a pandal contractor. So changes are required. But unfortunately, the government is very slow, but our youth are going very fast. You need to bridge the gap. Then only we will be talking their language. Right?
Hello, sir. So you mentioned...
First question from a student.
Yeah,
so let me ask you your name.
Sir, Mahin.
Mahin?
Yeah, Mahin.
M-A-H-I-N.
Yeah, so you got it right, like very few people do.
Yeah, because we have a place called Mahe in Kerala, Mayedi.
Oh.
So I was thinking that it must be you are from Mahe.
Oh.
So it is, what is your subject you study?
So I'm doing BFM, Bachelor of Financial Markets.
Oh, okay. Financial markets.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. That is another thing. In the skill, we should understand, there is a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, sir.
So if you do not understand money, how will you create wealth?
Yeah.
So that is very good that you have taken this course. Excellent. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, my question was that you mentioned that India's skill rate right now is measured at 21% only.
21.2.
21.2. So, sir, where do you see it in the next 5 to 10 years, like with the current measures and plans the government has, by approximately 2030, where would it be, and how would it, mainly impact the economy of India?
See, I believe, people like Professor Rajasen Pillai, who has such a vision. University vice chancellors, I heard that there was a meeting in 30th of March here. He hosted the meeting. More vice chancellors, more universities, engineering colleges, they should speak that their campuses are the best location for skill training. Because, when you see, I'll tell you, grassroots innovators, when we brought into NID, one side the grassroots innovator, Professor Anil Gupta from IIM, and we did together this initiative. They were so excited, the design students, to meet the grassroots innovators. They started working together. So if a ATDC graduate, who is only a skill person, or an ITI person, works in IIT, it makes a big change. They feel belonging there. A corner of IIT, if you are changing lathing skills and bending skills and this and that, whatever, skills are required for different products, then the perception of the product changes. In an interval time, a student like you will drop in to see an ITI guy and tell him that this can be done in this manner. Their knowledge improves. Now we have kept it in silos. Right on the cap. Fantastic. I never knew. It should have been told. Yeah. You have done a great thing. Allow people to seep through. Osmosis should take place, So I agree with you that, current level of interesting, especially after COVID, people are still not finding the people coming back to the physical context. But the moment it picks up and more universities and schools and colleges are made the space for vocational training, I think it will change. But the number is so huge in India, obviously it is a big climb. It is not that in my lifetime I can see it, but maybe in your lifetime we'll see from current 5% or 21% over. 21% is overall skill level of the labor force. But your skills of various other kinds are not counted in that. That is a different skill. Like your planning skill, organizing skill, like the management, basic POSD, planning, organizing, staffing, directing, whatever. So those kind of skills are not included in this. They are talking about the labor force skills. So you can be rest assured that you will have good market. Finance is the key. Finance is oil. Yeah, yes, sir. Go on. What is your name? I am interested in students, If they ask a question, you must not feel shy to ask a question. Question, there is no tax. First of all, yeah. Yeah, bolo.
All right. So good afternoon, Koshy sir. My name is Rachit Sinha. I'm a mass media student, first year.
Very good, yeah.
And so naturally, if I'm studying mass media, design somewhere comes into the picture, and we are looking at fashion and the innovation that design has been happening, that it has seen. My question is somewhat related to cinema and independent cinema.
Right.
So what we've seen over the last 10 years is the emergence of independent cinema. Not that it didn't exist before that, but it blew up in the last 10 years majorly. And we've seen a commercialization of independent cinema.
Right.
So directors like Ram Gopal Verma, Anurag Kashyap, Sanjay Leela Bhansali, who made very nuanced content, have somehow fallen into this loop of making content just like that, which is usually 70 to 80% of the time available on OTT platforms. And they don't gross numbers like commercial cinema or, like commercial cinema. So my question now is with relation to design. How exactly can design and how exactly can fashion bring back independent cinema to its actual roots, the place where it started? To give an example, a movie like Black Friday. The censor board did not release Black Friday, and for the simple reason that there were so many cuts in the movie that the movie became 30 minutes long, which was originally a 2-hour 30-minute movie, became a 30-minute long movie. So how can design and fashion and the innovation in these two help in the, I'd say, revamp or rewriting of independent cinema in India? Thank you.
It's a very difficult question for an unpad like me to answer. Yeah. But, my feeling is that the fashion is becoming digital now. A lot of digital fashions, you must be knowing NFT, right? Yes. Non-fungible tokens. So the fashion and the digital world are combining in this manner by creating what is called the new area called digital fashion, where somebody is creating a particular fashion not probably for wearing it, but just seeing it on a a independent cinema of somebody who you would not have normally been able to even manufacture that kind of a look. So you may be creating that kind of a digital fashion for that cinema. And the NFT gets attached to that particular creation. And you are able to trade in the NFT in the digital fashion. So that one area which might open up through the marriage of digital cinemas or visual medium and the social media, Instagrams and Twitters and all that, it will be a new amalgam where you are generally calling SM, the social media. In the social media, OTT platform will also get connected. And a lot of people will experiment. For example, the Malayalam cinema in this period, people from New York are giving me list of Malayalam cinema I should watch. Like Churuli, I mean, a lot of people. Nitin Gupta, my student, wrote, "Sir, have you watched this? Please watch." I'm Malayali, but he is advising me, sitting in New York, what to watch. Because people are now going across the languages now. You can choose the language of seeing a particular film, and you can see Pushpa, for example. So many languages it is showing, So it is possible that with this language barriers blurring and the digital world combining, more and more independent cinemas will come on its own. That is all I have to say, because I don't know more about it. The only exposure I had was like Pune Film Institute. NID had a very strong, highly articulated group of students in what is called film and video communication. Probably they were the most difficult group of students to manage. I hope you are not one of them. Because they used to come to my room for any discussion with a video camera. So I used to be very, initially I was thinking that, why are you coming with a video camera? Sir, we want to capture what you are telling. I said, I am just interacting with you. Every interaction need not be. So in order not to offend them, I said, go ahead. What I'm going to say here is what I'm going to say elsewhere. So there's no problem. But the students were very, very proactive. They used to do a lot of, features. And I'm sure that you are a promising talent. And do not worry about the platforms, etc. You have something to say strongly, go for it. Your medium will come in search of you. All the best. Shall we conclude? Last one question anybody wants to ask? I didn't see any girl student asking.
You are aware of the national education policy.
Yes, sir.
You are also aware of the fact that there is an academic bank of credits. No? I don't know whether you are.
Yes, I'm aware.
So that regulations have come. We are also, we are in the bank. So up to 40% of the credits for any university degree can be earned from outside, up to 40%. How the skills sector can, of course you said establishing skill parks, for example, in the university just as an optional thing, engineering college, medical college, nursing college, there are a lot of skills. So one can, of course, these are all policies, regulations have also come, but it's very possible that maybe 20 to 30% of the credits for a university degree can be availed from the appropriate skill sector,
Brilliant.
Appropriate skill sector. So what is it that, in order to promote that, of course you said vice chancellors and people like it, we have to promote it.
Yes.
What is it that we have, how we can really communicate it to the society, communicate it to the institutions, and make it happen?
Well, my initial reaction is that the sectoral skill councils, including for, housemaids, how to train them as a maid in a house, even for that there is a sectoral skill council. So if you have, let us say, in this university, certain knowledge areas where skill affinity is higher in terms of, its use for the student to add value. I think the first selection is the electronics council, a sectoral skill council or apparel or whatever. You identify them and call for a meeting of the sectoral skill councils. All of them may not be in Mumbai, but they will come. Rubber products has a separate council, automobile has. So if you can call a select 10, 12 people who are mostly the largest employers of your students and initiate a dialogue, I think it will give a starting point because all of them are their members in that industry. The QPs are also defined by them, the qualification packs. The courses also you can change if required. Yeah, there is enough flexibility on that. So the symbiotic kind of, dialogue with the skill providers through the sector skill council. Because going to skill providers and talking to them will not help you. Because you are talking to at least some knowledgeable people sitting at the top of every council. Some of them are people like, the Apollo's chief in that, Sangeeta Reddy is there in something. I mean, people are generally Rupak Vasisht in our apparel. So many good people are there in this sector skill council. But they are also not getting the universities, etc., to interact with them. So you will be probably taking a lead in calling them for a discussion and then putting with your head of the departments to identify a plan for making 20% or 25% from the best skill providers, or calling them and providing the classroom. They will bring the equipment and use it for weekend classes, as it is done in ASAP in Kerala. The classrooms are identified, the faculty are tracked through the computer system. Even to take a leave, they have to, it's very strictly monitored. I know. And it is fantastically running. ASAP is a very good scheme to look at the model, so that your infrastructure, they will come to your place to deliver to your students.
Former Chief Secretary is
I think he's in charge of that. Yeah.
He's in charge of it.
So it will be a good idea to start from that point, so that you don't get lost in the labyrinthine of...
That's doable. That's definitely doable. Whether Sangeeta Reddy, FICCI, she's the chairperson of the FICCI also.
Yes. And health sector.
Health sector also.
Because you have a nursing institute, you have... It will be a good idea.
Definitely. Probably we will also invite you in that meeting.
No, certainly, anytime.
Maybe
it's a pleasure
in a month's time.
Take your time, yes. Last question from any girl student. Because I am pushing women's participation in labor force, everything. I would be very disappointed if nobody asked a question from girls' side, Ask, please come. What is your name? With this we conclude today's, Shamini. Shravani, okay. What is FPP? So many acronyms, First year. Oh, okay. Yes. Very good question. Actually, I find sometimes we are depleting the value. See, for example, if I am doing something which is neither adding to my knowledge or to the audience knowledge, I am only looking at, some other thing, you are actually doing a value depletion. Darlie, Koshy or, Shravani will have a certain things on which people are perceiving you. You as a good student, disciplined, whatever. Certain things you may do, suddenly it will deplete value. We have seen it often happening in public fora. Somebody makes one comment and your entire thing, comes down the next day. You have to be very careful also about what you do, what you say. So that is value depletion, when you are not doing what will add value to you. But adding value is like, painting something. You have added value, but you have not created value. Creating value is when intangibles give you better return than some tangible. For example, perfume. When we were taught in FIT New York, they said that, have you seen the drums on which perfumes come? They are very ugly drums. But when it is put into very sexy, very nice looking bottles, and you have very nice shapes, very human interactive kind of shapes which they come out with the bottles, you like to press it, you like to put it in your body, you are wearing perfume. You are not putting perfume. It is like apparel. Just like your shoe or your belt, you never say you put perfume. You wear a perfume. Because it is also on your skin, another body, another aromatic thing. So you are adding value to that particular ugly drum container which smells well by giving it attributes and putting into the right shaped bottle or whatever, and then giving it Calvin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger or Chanel or whatever names, and the brand set suddenly became value added. So a lot of people today are beginning to understand. I was listening to the UP election time, people in Firozabad, people in Attar. There is an Attar manufacturing place in UP. What is the name of the place? I forget. Kanoj. Kanoj election was covered by India Today. They were showing that this perfume manufacturer, the new generation, they are putting in their own bottle and trying to from Attar to perfume manufacturing. So it is value addition. When you are converting from a raw material provider, very small bottle, you are supposed to swab it on your skin, and that is not now what they are doing, the new generation. They are trying to come out with substitutes for women, for men, different types of perfumes. So the travel from value depletion to value addition to value creation is a complete travel which you must keep in mind. So while you are studying computer, if you are just doing a program, that is not adding value. That is what the Indian industry was called for a long time, body shopping industry. They meant that you will sit in a counter, do some work of voice calling or something. That is not value addition. I mean, value adding activity. It gives you some, time, some labor arbitrage. Somebody is cheaper, so you got the work. But the moment it becomes a brand-driven, consumer perception-driven mind space. So first you must get the eyeball share, then you go to mind share, then it becomes market share. So from eyeball share to mind share to market share, the travel takes you through value addition. Right? Okay, yeah.
So there's one last question from our webinar participant.
Yes, please.
It says...
Ajay, on your,
yes,
okay, sorry, that also we must give. Yes.
Hello, sir. Great session. What's your opinion on an oriental blend of industrial and research innovations? He's written, it's obvious that we need to incorporate indigenous, but question remains how in each sector as subjectivism manifests. It's on oriental blend of industrial and research innovations.
No, I was very fascinated by one of the Christian leaders talking somewhere, telling that actually we are part of a culture which is broadly called Hindu culture of India. But the religion can be any religion. But we are brought in the culture. We also use the lamps. We use the various, the rituals are more or less reflecting the Hindu culture. But the religion can be independent. Oriental is the broad framework on which we exist. So the travel from a particular culture to a religion or a interpretation of an Oriental. Ratan Tata ji, when he came to NID, he said a very interesting thing. When we were discussing nano, he announced for the first time the nano in 2003 when he came to NID campus. I was very inspired by his visit. Such a simple, man. When we served him chicken cutlet, he was very knowing where it has come from. So we said it's from our canteen, not from some five-star hotel. Because he was enjoying that cutlet. He wanted to know. That kind of, But he said a very interesting thing. In your automobile program, don't think you can set the design direction. You can do design interpretation. That always remained in my mind. He said that this bubble car or pear-shaped car or teardrop car, this is all coming from Japan's miniaturization approach or Italy's architectural approach, or some countries have different types of, because people are growing up by seeing an architectural line of a Roman architecture. It's a very different growing up. Your eyes get used to architectural lines. And growing up in Paris will be very different. Growing up in India, if you are making only ugly construction all around, our people's aesthetics will be too low. That is why public spaces need to have that aesthetics built into it. Our people who are staying in Kerala house, when I tell them that this Konna, today morning the golden shower tree had 2-3 parrots sitting there, they are looking at amazement. Where did you see it? I said, from my window, I'll show you, and I put in the Facebook today all the parrots on that, He said, how did you take this, sir? I said, with a mobile camera. But you must an eye, There is sound, there is Mohammed Rafi, Lada Mangeshkar, what is it, very famous, Shreya Ghoshal, all in this room. But you must have an antenna. Only if you are tuning that antenna and getting that tune right, which FM is playing that music, you will hear it. Otherwise, music is there in this air, hai na? Abhi bhi ek FM radio mein aap dalo, aapko music sunega. But you must have the antenna. How to develop that design consciousness? How to develop that person to Oriental culture framework, to the culture of India, to the kind of religion or communities? Because India is driven by a lot of communities. And that community has a certain way of looking at food, fashion, whatever, So you need to really take all this into consideration and make a framework. There is no single answer to it. The only point which I want to emphasize is about research. Our people just jump into designing. Frank Gehry, when he was asked about Guggenheim Museum, how he designed, he said that, management and design are two different things. Management wants crystallization immediately. As a manager, I must take 2 choices or 3 choices, make a decision. But design is a non-crystallized liquid form for a long time. Liquidization to crystallization is a long process in design. So Frank Gehry says, when I am doodling a plan of a museum or a building, that is not the building which is going to come out. That is not the design. Design is a longer process. So our people jump into design without doing sufficient research. So in a decayed middle town of Bilbao, to create a Guggenheim Museum and change this entire perspective of that country was very different. How Frank Gehry changed that approach of I think it is Frank Gehry, just Google, I'm talking from my memory. I'm very amazed by the kind of structure he created. Same thing about the Jewish Museum in Berlin. You cannot walk straight in that museum. You will feel you are a drunkard because they are making you go over metallic skulls of people, reminding you of the Holocaust. So when you walk on the museum, I walked along with Luigi Ferrara, who was the president of ICSID at that time. You will feel completely shocked just hearing the sound of the metallic boots on the skulls of the people lying. All are metallic skulls. The museum is astounding. Now that is what is called experience, They have done research to create that museum. How should the person feel when they come out of the museum? Now we are not doing enough research. Design is to be done. Now it is 20% research, 80% just action. It should reverse the process. 60, 70 or 50% should be total research of the consumer's mind. When I went to Samsung studio in Seoul, people were sitting on the floor in the design studio assessing whether the new generation would like to sit in a sofa and see the TV, or they would like to put a gata and see the TV, or would sit in a chair. How should it be a curved TV screen? They are researching. They had some 400, 500 member team for researching for television's shape and size and colors. So my point to this gentleman's question is, or lady, is that research is the key to deciding what framework and how the direction. Like Ratan Tata said, if India cannot set the direction in certain thing, better to interpret the design and go for it.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, sir. It's my pleasure to welcome Professor Harshit Desai, the president for this lecture series. Professor Desai is the director of MIT ID Innovation and head of Department of Design Management and Innovation Program. He has an experience of over 15 years, both in the industry and higher education, and has a rich experience in design management and innovation. He works closely with industry, government, and startup ecosystem. Professor Desai has a keen interest in developing new programs that intersect design, business, and technology. I invite Professor Harshit Desai to deliver the presidential remarks.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity, and first of all, thanks for the wonderful journey that you took us, and with the examples and the cases that you could bring about the importance of skills for today's world. I think the way I would summarize this and the key takeaways is what Sir mentioned, that we are moving towards a new kind of an economy. Okay, there are so many forces which are kind of driving towards this whole new world and a new economy, where skills in all its form will become more and more important. And not only the government efforts which are already underway, I think as a university and this kind of an educational ecosystem, the responsibility and the opportunity is with us. And not only the knowledge part, but the skills part, if that is really integrated into the academics in different formats, okay, like whatever is being currently explored here in terms of having multidisciplinary or transdisciplinary approach, it becomes very, very interesting to see how this new world, which is, again, as Sir mentioned, that the examples in the design space, where the learning is largely through doing, and the knowledge and the skill are kind of well integrated. So probably if we take a leaf from his journey of the kind of institutes that he has spent time, is that knowledge and skills can go together. And in this new age of learning,
with creativity.
Yeah, and I'll come to that. And so the another important point which is said, that we as educators or we as this ecosystem are not here for teachers past, right? It is for the students' future. And I think that's a very, very interesting point which summarizes things, that how do we drive this future skills? There is a word which often is used now, is called the 21st century skills, and that is where I think most of the skills that are covered under design. And again, his journey where you specifically mentioned, sir, creativity and communication. If these are the two skills which has brought him or kind of is part of his illustrious career, most of these 21st century skills, you will see that a major part of these 21st century skills are in this design and innovation related skills. So much so that innovation itself is being proposed as a skill. Innovation is something which is not now the realm of some lone genius. Okay, innovation is a skill which can be learned. Okay, there can be a training, there can be a ways and means by one can become creative, by one can become innovative. And I think this is one of the messages that I would also like to leave it to all of you young learners from my side as well, is two things. One is the different examples of T-shaped person or I-shaped person, or that was a very interesting addition to my vocabulary, because so far I was aware of an I-shaped and a T-shaped, because T-shaped is the horizontal skill and the I-shaped, like the vertical, is your core fundamental domain skill. But all summarizes that one thing is very, very important, that innovation will happen at the intersection. Now the days are gone where you will be defined by your own specialization, or I am, like many of you have to introduce yourself that I am studying BCA or I am studying finance or I am studying nursing or whatever. I think more or less the world of work requires you to multitask. The world of work will require you to look at things from multiple perspectives. And that is where this kind of training, this kind of innovation training and these measures will not only be useful for you at a studying level, but that prepares you for the world ahead. And thanks to COVID, I think we have seen that whatever we never imagined would happen has imagined in just 2 years. Okay, people again jokingly used to say that in companies, who is your chief digital transformation officer? So the single answer is that COVID is my digital transformation officer, because nobody could have imagined that we would work like this, we would learn like this, and COVID just made it possible. Okay, and again what sir was mentioning, that yeah, these are difficult, or these were difficult times, but they were equally interesting times, and never lose an difficult time, because difficult times are such black swan events which you don't invite, but if you make the most of it, and we have been given that opportunity. Fortunately, we are out of it now, but the learnings and whatever we have seen and experienced as a kind of last 2 years of journey here, I think that surely has made it very, very clear that whatever has worked in the past may not work in the future, because the future requires you to be a different person in so many ways, and skills will be one of the most critical and the most important part. And I end this note with this simple quote about future, is that we often see future is something which is coming, right, which is ahead of us, but the best way to look at future is this quote which says that the future is already here, it's unevenly distributed. Means we all are witnessing future in some or the other ways. Okay, there are the recent article which YouTube ran on first pages of Times. YouTube had actually published a figure which says that the content creators which YouTube has supported is equivalent of some 4 lakh job opportunities. Now there is a platform on which there are people who are just creating content, like what again sir was also mentioning, that in this, be it the media or journalism or any of these content driven industries, content and other creative outputs are going to be more and more democratized. Okay, and that is where one of the opportunity lies. So if we have a company or a platform like YouTube which is supporting so many careers, supporting so many jobs, okay, it is just because there is that one skill at play. Okay, you have that skill and you can kind of sustain yourself for a long period of time. And then obviously some of these skills are so malleable and so adaptable, and thanks to again the ecosystem which we live in, I think we have a lot of flexibility to kind of adapt and change. Okay, gone are the times when you would be defined by your careers. Okay, it will be very difficult for you to tell that I am an engineer or I am a designer or I am an computer scientist. You will be that X kind of a person or an M type of person where you know one domain, you know one technology, you will merge it and you will create something new. And I think that's again summarizes how important skills are going to be, as long as you understand what are the skills in the offing. Okay, there are traditional skills and there are new age skills. Okay, there are these 21st century skills which combine a lot of things from the design and the creative and the innovation side. I think if you, along with your hard skills, when there is this classic discrimination always done that there are certain things are hard skills and there are certain are soft skills, but I think again gone are the days, because soft skills, what traditionally used to be called as soft skills, are becoming more and more important. Okay, and although you learn a hard skill in a university system like this, but for your professional and personal success, it's equally important that you also keep gaining these skills along with your regular skills that you are studying. And I think that definitely will prepare you for a better future, and you will be in a position to create a better future for yourself. Thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your... Thank you, sir. In fact, I thought I would make it...
Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Lieutenant General Jagbir Singh, sir, to propose the vote of thanks.
Joseph, this copy, you can take it on, put on the video.
Professor Koshy, Professor Harshad Desai, Professor Pillai, members of the faculty, students, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Koshy for having taken his time out to be with us today and giving us this insightful talk on a very important subject of a skilled India towards a skilled India at 75 and beyond. As he said, that skilling is something that is important. There's a demographic dividend that he talked about. If it's not used properly, this demographic dividend could become a demographic disaster. What is important for a country like us, where the population is so high, the job creation can never keep pace with it. Like you said, 25 to 30 million people come into the job market every year. It's only about 7 to 8 million jobs can be created. The dichotomy here is that the formal sector is going down. Jobs in the formal sectors are reducing. It's the informal sector that you need to look at. When you're looking at manufacturing sector, if you've got to compete with the world, it's all machines today. Manpower is not, it's not manpower intensive, it's machine intensive. Whereas jobs are for men, for human beings. I mean, when I say men, it's men and women. It's human beings. So therefore, we need to identify, like it's being said again and again, that universities are places of education where you need to teach students to be job ready. They need to learn various skills where they can take on jobs. When they go out from here, they're ready to take it on. You need to identify your own aptitude, what is important. Need to know what you like to do. Problem today is a lot of people take up professions and vocations which they actually don't like. And therefore, their expertise is not there. So what you find mediocrity creeping in everywhere. Traditional skills have gone. They're almost dead. You need to revive traditional skills in India, and India is very rich in traditional skills. We have a lot to give to this world, and we need to take on our traditional skills. We need to revive it. It's also our demography, our population, which can be a dividend for us when we look at it. It's not just skilling our population for working in India. I would look at it to say there are so many countries. You look at the Central Asian republics, huge, vast areas of land, huge resources, but no manpower, no population to exploit those. It is those places that we need to train our people as well. If India is to become a power, we have to send our people out. We need to send skilled people out, where they become your ambassadors, and you get things coming back into the country. It happened in the early 60s when people went to Europe, when people went to UK and all, where there was a dearth of manpower, and people from India went there. And they're doing very well wherever they went. They went abroad, they went to the US, they went to the UK, they went to Canada, and wherever they've gone, they've done very well. So it's not just here. We need to be very clear. We need to develop our skills so as to be able to export our manpower to places which is looking for manpower. And there is a lot of scope, and I'm sure with the policies that the government is coming up with, and if implemented properly, the problem is between the planning and the implementation, the execution of those policies. If they're implemented properly, I'm sure our entire youth would be benefited by it, the country would be benefited by it. Thank you so much on behalf of Mr. Somaiya, who's not here. Professor Koshy, I'd like to thank you for the very insightful talk that you gave. Professor Desai, for the comments that you gave. And I'm sure all of us have benefited by the talk here today. And being a place of education, a temple of education, I think we all carry a lot from what we need to do and change. And this is for sure that the Somaiya Vidyavihar University is definitely looking at changing the curricula in various courses which makes the students ready for facing the world and challenges of tomorrow. And I'm sure we will be the forerunners and one of the front runners in doing that and taking the country and the youth of the country forward. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.
I now request everyone to rise for the national anthem. We'll sing it, I think. Yeah. Yes, sir. Janaganam Nayak Jaya Hai Bharat Bhagya Vidhata Punjab Sindh Gujarat Maratha Dravid Kalamanga Vindhya Himalaya